I wanted to join the Marines actually because my father was a Marine, but I was 17 years old, went to the local recruiting office and tried to join. They said, you're 17, you need your parents' signature. Why don't I come over to your house and get your parents' signature this evening? I said, fine. So I thought my father would be very excited and proud of me, but Vietnam was still going on.
Yeah.
And when the Marine sergeant came to our house that evening, my father would not sign.
You're watching the Spotlight Network, starring Hollywood's newsman, Logan Crawford.
They now believe a single member.
He works with TV and film legends. And now, Logan's shining the spotlight on the world's top emerging authors and creators.
International were abducted.
This is Spotlight with Logan Crawford. Streaming on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV.
I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on the Spotlight Network, we're exploring the unforgettable coming-of-age novel called Bellamy. It's written by a terrific author by the name of G. Bradley Davis. It's a story that boldly blends nostalgia, social justice, and psychological drama. Set in small-town America in the 1960s and 70s, Bellamy follows young Calvin Lloyd as he faces racism, homophobia, and abuse, guided only by his imaginary friend. This heartfelt and daring narrative is part Wonder Years, part Law and Order, and all truth. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing book. The links are below this interview. Glenn, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thanks for having me, Logan.
Let's start out by talking about your inspiration. What inspired the character of Bellamy, Calvin's imaginary friend?
Well, growing up in a small town, I actually had an imaginary friend growing up. I was the youngest of four, and really, my siblings were much older, and we didn't have that much in common when I was young. So I created an imaginary friend who I kept for a number of years until I probably reached my teens.
Very, very cool. How much of this story is drawn from your own experiences growing up?
I would say at least half of it is autobiographical. I won't tell you which ones are and which ones aren't, but there are certainly stories within the story which are very true. But then I morphed it into some creative ideas that kind of streamlined the story, if you will.
Absolutely. Let's give the folks at home an overview of the book. Tell us what it's about briefly.
Well, first of all, the word Bellamy, or the name Bellamy, it comes from the Old English and the French, which means loyal friend or good friend. So Bellamy is Calvin Lloyd's best friend. And Calvin is a round peg in a square hole in society. He doesn't quite fit in. He doesn't fit into his family very well. He doesn't fit into school because he does have ADD, which back in the 60s and 70s really wasn't diagnosed. So he had trouble paying attention. So he really wasn't a very good student. And he always seemed to be the third wheel in a friendship with other peers his age. So he was no one's best friend, but maybe a couple of people's third best friend. He gets into mischief, as 60s and 70s children would. But then he's hungry for some meaningful relationships. And the first one he finds is with a gay gentleman who lives down the street. It's a platonic relationship, but it's a relationship that he has to keep secret. And the same thing for a girl that he falls in love with, who happens to be African-American. Again, not very acceptable for a teenager in the 60s and 70s. Yeah. So he keeps that secret as well. Calvin is looking to find his courage, his moxie, if you will. And he struggles with it as he grows on, continues to grow. And in the neighborhood, one of the neighborhood children gets murdered. Someone gets falsely accused, and Calvin has the opportunity to step up and find that courage. But I won't go on to say whether he finds it or not.
Exactly, exactly. It's a wonderful story. Really brings you back to a different time. Growing up in the 60s and 70s is really 180 degrees different than today. First of all, it was an analog era. You know, we weren't all consumed with phones and all of the electronic gadgets and so forth. But it was also, you know, while the best of times, it is also the worst of times because, you know, prejudice and racism and homophobia were still, you know, rampant, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think today we have a different challenge in that people who are different from us in our society, we're keeping at an arm's length.
Mhm.
For some reason, if you don't agree with me politically or religiously or socially, then I don't want you as a friend. And I think that's a huge mistake.
Exactly. I mean, you see the polarization on social media all the time. Post one thing that somebody doesn't like, and somebody who you didn't even know was on your friends list is there ready to attack you, unfriend you, unfollow you. And you're like, I didn't realize we were friends in the first place. And you
Exactly.
probably weren't. That's the bottom line of it all. So it is a different time, a different era. Have you envisioned Bellamy as a TV series or a film?
Ah, absolutely. And I'll tell you why, Logan. I don't think I'm alone when I say that too many movies today are nothing more than a remake of a remake of a remake.
Yeah.
Um, Romeo and Juliet's been made 100 times since. West Side Story is nothing more than Romeo and Juliet that takes place in the 60s.
Yeah.
I think we need some creative storylines, some plots that think outside of the box. And Bellamy certainly is that. I think it would be an outstanding series or movie and something that the public would really embrace.
Exactly. I think we need a fine film that's entertaining to watch, that opens minds, opens hearts, and doesn't involve superheroes. I think that would be great, without a doubt, or other comic book characters. Do you feel that the challenges that Calvin faces will resonate with today's readers?
I do. I think the biggest statement I think that would resonate with readers today is that too often, again, we're keeping people who are different from ourselves away at an arm length. And it's unfortunate because some of the best relationships may be out there that we're not being open to. I think that would be a great statement and an invitation for people to maybe reach out and branch out, open themselves up to people who don't look like themselves, act like them, or believe in everything that they believe in. I also think the humor and the escapades of Calvin would be very entertaining for anybody who would read the book.
Absolutely, absolutely. Talk to us a little bit about how Bellamy serves as both a protector and conscience throughout the novel.
Bellamy has the courage that Calvin wants. Uh, it's his alter ego, if you will. It's another way of encouraging Calvin to do the things that he's hesitant to do, to reach out to certain relationships, if you will. But also, I think this is very important too. When he's hurting, and there were many times he was hurting, either physically from a fight in the neighborhood, or emotionally, there was the one person that could also always comfort him, someone he could go to that he knew that he would never be let down by.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about the romantic relationship and the racial tensions that exist. Let's drill down on that a little bit. Tell us more about this aspect of Calvin's life.
Well, for somebody being the round peg in the square hole, it kind of makes sense that he would have a relationship with somebody who was in that era taboo.
Hmm.
He meets a girl in school who actually befriends him, but he's always got his guard up. He's not quite sure why somebody would want to be a friend with him. And so he's very cautious entering into the relationship. But as she shows him unconditional love and acceptance, the relationship starts to blossom. But again, he keeps it very much secret. And there's a part in the book where she's waiting for him to ask her to the prom, waiting and waiting. And so he's got to decide whether he's going to make this relationship public or to not take her to the prom and leave it secret.
Absolutely. Why was it important to include in the storyline a gay neighbor?
My personal experience, when I was growing up, I had family members who were gay, and I treated them very poorly. I alienated myself from them. I didn't want to have any type of relationship with them, even though they were relatives. As I grew up and became a man and understood my error in my ways, I reconciled with those relatives and built a great relationship. But I think the fact that you can have platonic relationships again with people who are gay is a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
We need to have relationships with people who are not like ourselves.
Exactly.
I do not want to hang around with people all day long that look, act, or think like I do all day. I live with myself. I don't need to have friends exactly like me.
Exactly. It's like the casting calls we have in Hollywood and New York. You show up in a room and you're there with a dozen people who look exactly like you. And it's the worst place in the world to be. So yeah, around diverse voices, diverse opinions, diverse people, and diverse lifestyles certainly is a lot more entertaining than being in a room full of people who look like you. The murder trial, of course, is a fascinating aspect of this book, and it also involves themes of prejudice and injustice. Tell us about that.
Well, without revealing too much of the book, someone very close to him gets accused and arrested for a murder of a neighborhood boy. Immediately, they start suspecting a gay gentleman because the child was found partly clothed, and so there's that challenge there of trying to defend himself. As you had mentioned, Logan, the district attorney, the jury had a lot of prejudice towards this man. And but there was someone, Calvin, actually, who could bail him out if he wanted to, if he had the courage to do so. So the trial is very much a kangaroo court, if you will.
Absolutely. What message are you hoping readers take away from Calvin's moral dilemma?
Well, as I said earlier, reaching out to people who are not like yourself. There's an old saying that your 6 closest friends are the 6 people you would want to carry your casket when you die. Yeah. I'm fortunate enough that 3 of my casket bearers would be Black, African American, 1 would be gay, and 2 would be more looking like myself. But at least half of them are strongly affiliated with a political party that I am not. Yeah. And so I want people to put down their guards, to reach out to someone who is different than you, and you might find that it's going to be a very, very rewarding experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about your writing career. Is this your first time writing a book? Is it your first time trying to write a book? Tell us a little bit about your writing work.
Well, I had written a nonfiction piece of work, but nonfiction is nothing more than gathering a bunch of facts and putting it into readable form. Mm-hmm. Bellamy was my first venture into writing a piece of fiction. And since then, I've written Making Waves, which it's not a sequel, but it does have Calvin Lloyd as the protagonist. And in another month, I have another book coming out as well. So it's really starting to roll now, these pieces of fiction that I'm writing.
Great. Once you get the bug, once you enjoy being in that space of creating, it's a wonderful space to be. It's very rewarding. It's like living in a different world in a different land, and in sometimes a world that used to be. It can be great. Tell us a little bit about Making Waves and where you are going with that novel.
Sure. Well, Calvin Lloyd, at the end of Bellamy, joins the Navy, and he's
Hmm.
only 17 years old. He needs his parents' signature to join. So it follows his career in the Navy. He gets assigned a guided missile destroyer in the Mediterranean. And while there, he, out of default, gets placed into a mission that he's really not prepared for. But nonetheless, it gives him that opportunity to really prove his courage, and he has plenty of opportunities to do so. There's espionage involved, there's a murder involved, there's romance involved, and a lot of this takes place in the Eastern Mediterranean, the Black Sea, Ukraine, Romania, Hungary, those Eastern Bloc countries. So it's got a little bit of everything. It's really exciting, and I may add that someone had recently read this and posted a
Commentary or review?
yes, I'm sorry,
Okay,
a
sure.
commentary on the book, and the woman said, I don't read war books or books that involved military, but I read this book and was thoroughly surprised and enjoyed the book thoroughly because it just was a real action-packed, quick reading book, a page turner, and she was pleasantly pleased that it really didn't go down the road of war and politics much and military.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, that book sounds terrific, and that's available for sale now as well, right? Making Waves?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay, so we will look at it for it on Amazon as well. Is that part of your background? Were you in the Navy? Is Calvin's story and yours intertwining here a little bit? And what was that experience like serving our country?
Absolutely. I wanted to join the Marines actually because my father was a Marine, but I was 17 years old, went
Mhm.
to the local recruiting office and tried to join. They said, you're 17, you need your parents' signature. Why don't I come over to your house and get your parents' signature this evening? I said, fine. So I thought my father would be very excited and proud of me, but Vietnam was still going on.
Yeah.
And when the Marine sergeant, came to our house that evening, my father would not sign.
Hmm.
He said, Glenn, if you want to join the military, I'll sign for the Navy, but not for the Marines.
Wow.
And so that's how I ended up in the Navy. I was on a guided missile destroyer in the first half of my naval career or naval enlistment. I was in for 5 years and spent a lot of time on the Eastern Mediterranean. So I was very familiar with that aspect that I put into the book. But a lot of it is just fictitious
Right.
fantasies of my mind.
Right. But it's essentially what you know because you were in the Navy. Your dad wanted you in the Navy because he felt it was a bit safer than being a Marine?
Absolutely. He said, at least you're guaranteed 3 meals a day and a place to sleep.
Yeah. So looking back on it now, and when you were a young man, were you upset with your dad? Were you pleased you made that decision together? What was that like?
I was really disappointed. I wanted to be a Marine.
Yeah.
In retrospect, it was a great decision.
Yeah.
I loved my time in the Navy. You know what? I was somewhat of a punk when I was 17 years old, and it really helped me grow up and create more self-discipline. And it was a great experience for myself. And it gave me the GI Bill as well. It was a good
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, I think our country would benefit in many ways if there was mandatory military service again. I know you enlisted, but in that era, it was mandatory. There was a draft and so forth. And I think everybody had a little skin in the game when it came to conflicts. So people thought a little longer, a little harder about getting involved in them because it was their sons, their daughters, or themselves who would be out there on the front lines. So another
Great.
dichotomy between now and then. The third book you're working on, how far are you into it? Do you have a working title? What's this one about?
Well, I'll tell you how far I am. It will be launched in another month. It's at the publishers now. Totally different from my first two books. It's called Senseless.
Mhm.
It's about a serial killer who really looks for one specific detail in his female victims. Now, it's not a Friday 13th horror flick
Right.
type of book. This has a very beautiful thread that's woven through the tapestry of the book. It has a lot to do, and I think a statement it makes is beauty. Is beauty nothing more than what we see with our eyes? Is it all external? What about the inner person that's beautiful? When you're married to somebody for 50, 60 years and their physical beauty tends to diminish, that love that you feel for them remains strong because of the beautiful person they are from within. So it really delves into that a little bit, and I think it makes a great statement in that regard.
Also, I think people are fascinated with serial killers. I know as a journalist, I am trying to figure out what they do, why they do, how they get caught. I mean, we have a big case here in the New York City area now with Rex Heuermann, who's accused of killing, I don't know, a dozen or so women and burying their bodies on a nearby beach. Why do you think there's such a fascination with serial killers, and why do you think it's good material for a book to explore?
I think it's an area of society that we dare not touch, right? There's a lot of experiences in life and in movies and what have you that we can experience ourselves. Hopefully, none of us have a desire to go out and kill multiple people. But I think it's always been that fascination of what would cause someone to take not just one person's life, but multiple people. We can all understand why someone would kill another person out of a jealous rage or out of anger, but for no reason, no apparent reason, and to do it over and over and over again. I think it's perplexing to all of us, and I think we're drawn into that story.
I agree. I think that's what it is. Everybody gets angry. They could see themselves being pushed to the level, perhaps, where they might pick up a knife or a gun. I don't know. But the fact that somebody's cold and calculating and lying in wait and doing it over and over again, I think that's what intrigues us. That's what gives us the chills. And it's almost like reading a ghost story or watching a ghost story, depending on what form you're consuming it in. You describe this book, Bellamy, as Wonder Years meets Law and Order. How did you blend innocence with legal drama so effectively?
Well, as in life, right? Life has its good times and its bad times. I didn't want the story to be all serious. If growing up, or if you have children yourself, you know how the type of things they get into and some of the funny stories. So that's very natural if you're going to have a coming to terms or coming of age book, rather.
Yeah.
But it reaches a serious point because, in fact, there's a turning point, I think, in everybody's life, maybe 4 or 5 things in our lives that really change the direction of our lives. Certainly who we marry, for example. But I wanted to show that here is a boy that's growing up and everything's, like you would expect for most children, other than the fact that he doesn't fit in. But then some real drastic things happen in his life that really turns 180 degrees. It turns his life upside down. And a lot of decisions have to be made. And whether he makes the right decision or wrong decision can alter the remainder of his life.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a big decision and will impact his character, no doubt, and his life. What was it like trying to blend humor and balance the darker elements of the story?
Well, I think I didn't have as much trouble doing that as you may think. I did not write the book from beginning to end. Maybe because of my ADD, I'm not sure. I would write sections of the book like a puzzle, then fit them all together. So there were times maybe I was a little melancholy, and it was a perfect time to write more of the more serious, the court situation, the murder scenes, what have you. And other times I was light-hearted and was able to write the others. So, I didn't write, some authors, I guess, write from the beginning to the end. That's not how I write, which is a challenge in itself, piecing everything together. But after some experience in doing so, it tends to work out very well for me.
Sounds great. I actually think that's a great technique. Whether you have a storyline that's linear or not, in your case, to just take the elements and mix them up. Would this be more interesting first and then flash back to this and so forth? I think it makes for a more interesting storytelling than starting at the beginning. If you notice, a lot of films nowadays don't start at the beginning. They kind of start at the end, start in the middle, or start at the most intriguing scene. Bellamy has a bit of a commentary on small time life. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it charming? Is it claustrophobic? What are your thoughts on small town life and Bellamy's views on it?
I'm a big fan of the small towns, small town America. The negative aspect was that, at least in the 60s and 70s, if I did something wrong and misbehaved on the other side of town, by the time I got home, my mother knew it.
Yeah.
So there was a communication because everyone knew each other.
Yeah.
I think in small towns too, you have more of that camaraderie, that neighborhood atmosphere. People, I think, will do for each other more willingly. They feel safer, I think. And in a large city, it's easy to get lost within the crowds, which is good for some people who don't want to be in the spotlight, so to speak. But I think small town America's got some great things. And for me, it was a great place to grow up. You might have had only one penny candy store, one ice cream shop, not a lot of choices to make, but they were just places that even now looking back, it just warms my heart.
And small towns are my favorite too. I love finding new small towns. I love finding small towns that are unchanged. What was the small town you grew up in?
It was called North Hills, Pennsylvania. It's a suburb of Philadelphia. And it was, we were so small, we couldn't even have our 4th of July parade. We had to go to the next town to have our parade. Same thing, we didn't have a movie theater. We had to go to the town over. But it was just a wonderful experience. And, back then, our firehouse would have an alarm at 5 o'clock. They would blow the whistle. And we would leave the house at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning and not come home till 5 o'clock. Wherever we were around noon, whosever house, that mother fed us all a sandwich, and then we'd go out and play again. But when that 5 o'clock whistle blew, you had 15 minutes to get your butt home.
Exactly, exactly. My mom used to call from the window when she wanted us. She would shout our names, and
Right.
It was a great time. And those penny candy stores were priceless. And it's like I said, every now and then you stumble upon a small town that's unchanged. Most of them are now just big sprawling suburbias, but some of them are still as they were. Leaving you today with a philosophical question that I'd like you to answer with the couple of minutes we have left. You go to a party, everybody you ever knew in your life is there. Who do you go up and talk to first?
My dad.
Hmm.
My dad died too young. 75 may not seem young, but he didn't see me accomplish some of the things that he would have been very proud of. I was a kid that always got in trouble. He didn't think I'd ever go to college. Again, ADD. But while I was in the Navy, I started taking some college courses, got some confidence. Confidence breeds success. I really believe that. And so I really did well in business, and he saw me do that. But then he passed before he saw me start my own business. He never read any of the books that I wrote. So I think my dad would be the first person I'd go up to of all the people that I know, that I've known in my life.
I think many people, many men feel the same way, that they wish they had more time with their dads, because dads in our era were busy. They went to work, they came home, they had their dinner, they watched TV or read the newspaper, and there wasn't as much interaction as there was with mom. So you knew mom's life, mom's stories, mom's, backstory a little bit better. And I'm with you. I'd have a longer conversation with my dad, without a doubt. The book that we've been talking about today is a wonderful one. It is called Bellamy. It is a courageous, nostalgic, and thought-provoking read that reminds us of the power of friendship, real or imagined, in overcoming life's darkest moments. Glenn, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Logan, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure talking to you. I appreciate your insight and your wisdom. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time. This time, until next time, on Spotlight.